You and I were building castles in the air without looking back.
I don't know why I do this setup, to be honest with you. My room is a mess, so there's that. And then I'm literally have to be like off the bed for my camera to even see me. There's also construction going on outside, which you can probably hear now, and I'm realizing this is just not ideal. I've been a bit inactive on YouTube, and I deactivated my Instagram account. I just needed a bit of a break, which is kind of what this video is going to be on a little bit. I hadn't really thought it through. This is pretty spontaneous. I just kind of want to talk about where I'm at, that kind of thing, and explain some stuff. So basically a couple of weeks ago, I took a break from thinking about making videos. The next one was going to be the reasons why recovery is always worth it video, the part 2 of it, and I decided to shut down my Instagram for a little bit too. Again, not permanently, just for a little bit. I do think it came down to the fact that I was giving advice videos, and I felt like I was in a much better place in recovery than I have been before in the past. I just found myself thinking less about all of the food rules. At the same time, I was posting these things about challenging different things and ED thoughts in my head and all of that kind of stuff, and I just kind of wanted to to be honest with you guys, I think in my head I just felt like I don't really want this to be the case for me anymore. I don't want to be this stuck in it. To actually kind of feel like I was starting to move away from it, and like every single second of the day I wasn't consumed by it. I think in my head I was like, you're like starting to get over this. Like it's time to kind of go live your life away from the eating disorder. Like it was kind of like a cure-all mentality. I think because my eating disorder has been like quite the cycle of falling in and out of it, the whole like quasi-recovery thing is something I dealt with for a super long time. It can be very exhausting to feel like the reality of your everyday is thinking about these things that you don't want to have to think about anymore. It's tiring. It's like this part of your brain that's always turned on and you want to turn it off, but you can't. And I just sometimes hit a period where I'm like, I just feel so frustrated that as a 21-year-old now, it's something I still have to deal with when it's been something that's been on my mind since I was 12. I didn't want to think about it anymore. I don't want it to be part of my life. I think that's ultimately what it was. I just wanted to be done with it. I wanted to be able to feel like I was recovered enough to put it aside. I think also on Instagram, I was just kind of feeling like, I don't know what I'm offering people if I'm not completely out of it, and I can't sit here and give advice fully on everything being on the other side of it, but I'm also not like necessarily sharing all of these things in a step-by-step way of like, beginning to challenge really big things. I am kind of in this like middle phase of, I have behaviors that are left over. I have things that I still need to challenge, food rules that are still hard for me to break. But a lot of things, even if they're uncomfortable, I've worked through. I don't know. I think in my head I just sort of felt like I don't reach either end of the spectrum. Then came the phase 2 of me being in my, I don't want to deal with recovery anymore. Again, this comes after 8 years of really struggling, finally hitting a point where I could recognize that I was better off than I have ever really been before. Even though I still, like I said, have things that I'm struggling with, I felt like I was farther along in recovery than I'd ever experienced, and wanted to kind of hit the conclusion of being done with it. Within pretty much 24 hours of making this mental decision and coming to this ridiculous conclusion that I never had to think about eating disorder thoughts and any of that stuff again. I've returned to certain old behaviors. I don't really want to go through them and kind of like give people the list of things that I go back to. But I think in my head I felt like if you're past working on recovery, then you can kind of go back to being a normal person. What normal people do is restrict a little. Who doesn't do that? Who doesn't try and fix certain things about their body by restricting or exercising and doing certain things and compensating that way? It was so clear that this eating disordered voice had returned and was just kind of telling me normal people do restrict and exercise as a means of compensation for what they look like and to fix certain aspects of their body. And the fact that I had used the idea that I was recovered, like completely recovered, as a tool to return to disordered behaviors. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, guys. It really doesn't. And I think I was so desperate to... I really, really wanted to be done with it. I know people relate to the black and white eating disorder mindset of an all or nothing, recovered or not. I felt like I, have this partial recovery where there are a lot of things that I'm not challenging in that way anymore. Like I said, most things are hard for me. Body image is really still challenging, and I still have some things that I'm working on, but overall, I'm not on that beginning level anymore, and I think I just felt like then you can be done with it. And it just doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. Another part of the realization is kind of this idea of like, can you ever be fully recovered? Maybe. But I'm not right now, and I think that ultimately, even people who are fully recovered have to be conscious about what choices they are making for themselves in terms of eating, in terms of exercise, portion sizes, how frequently you're eating. I don't know that I think that any person who suffered with an eating disorder can be recovered in a way that allows them to not think about food or exercise, if that was also your thing. I don't know if that's possible. I think being fully recovered also means being very conscientious about your past and what you need, and not letting yourself off the hook on things. And the very fact that my concept of me being recovered involved allowing me to behave like how I imagine a normal person acts in terms of how they eat, which involves restriction and involves punishing myself with exercise, is just, that's obviously, I don't even need to say it, that is not an example of full recovery and a reminder of the presence of my eating disorder. There is a somewhat of a bar on the extent of normal that you can have in a full recovery. And that's not a negative thing. It's a positive thing. It's being conscientious. It's being aware. It's having an awareness of yourself and your own needs and all of that kind of stuff. The thing about full recovery that I had pictured for a really long time was the ability to skip breakfast, the ability to skip a dessert because I could go without it without thinking too much about it, and I could maybe start losing weight. I could exercise more as, a tool to be healthy, but people also do it to stay fit and look a certain way. And I think there is still this eating disordered concept of what recovery will look like. There was this part of me that just had this idea that to be fully recovered would almost allow me to return to eating disordered behaviors, but put it under the label of normal because it's what I see other rest of the population doing. To be a mindful and, truly recovered person when it comes to an eating disorder means knowing that you can't skip that breakfast, you can't skip that snack, If you're thinking about food, go and get it for yourself. If you know you're putting on your running sneakers and going for that run or doing that workout because, you know, you're hoping that you'll shave off a little bit of this or that from yourself, like, put it back in the closet, you know, like, go sit down, make yourself sit down. No low level movement crap. Like, it takes an awareness that I wanted to let go of. It's a really long process, and that's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow to realize you've been working on it for this long and you still have so far to go. And it's also a hard pill to swallow to realize that life, in terms of thinking about eating disorder related thoughts, thinking about what you're eating, when, how much, how you're exercising, like, that is something I will probably have to be conscious of. I don't want to say forever, because maybe there's a point where I will truly naturally let go. So maybe not forever, but for a pretty long time after this. And I'm not gonna put a timer on that and pretend like I have a deadline in mind for when I can be completely over anything or be completely recovered. That is the, I don't know, fine print, I guess, that comes with recovery, is you're gonna have to be thinking about being aware of the exact thing that causes you so much internal stress and anxiety and pain, because you are taking care of yourself. As much as I wanted to throw that away and be done with it because I felt like I deserved to, I dealt with it for long enough, I have a responsibility to myself because of my history and, you know, my whole past. I have a responsibility of myself to think about those things and be on top of it. So I hope you guys can kind of see that it is a challenging balance to be someone who's not fully immersed in the eating disorder anymore. I've been able to let part of it go. The voice is a lot quieter in my head, and it's just less, it holds less significance to me, but I'm not recovered and I'm not completely, you know, out of it, and haven't fully walked away from it with like full 2020 retrospect. My hope is that it does still speak to people. I do only make these videos so that it's helpful for me and it's helpful for people watching them, and I want it to be relatable, and I want it to be content that helps you guys. And I hope it also speaks to some people out there who are working through the fact that they're not recovered, and the fact that they no longer are just their feeling like their eating disorder voice, that there's kind of more of a middle ground, and it's hard balancing who you are in that, and where you stand. So anyways, I hope this makes sense to people. I hope it speaks to some people, somewhat relatable. I'm sorry if it's not. I'm sorry if it made no sense. But all right, so more stuff to come soon. And I wish you guys all the best. Bye.